Hi, I'm Bill, and I'm a vegetarian. I'm also a lifelong environmentalist, a proud tree hugger. I've been a vegetarian for 42 years. I'm 61 years old. I know, you're surprised. I get that all the time. People say, you don't look a day over 60. Well, in the 42 years I've been a vegetarian, I've run marathons, practiced yoga, skied, and climbed mountains, and even played rugby for 30 years. I don't remember whether I caught that or not. Real men do eat quiche, just not without the ham, just without the ham. It all started 19 years ago. It all started 42 years ago, when I was 19, with a plate of frog's legs. It just didn't look right to me. Full disclosure here, I'm not a vegan. I'm what's called an ovo-lacto-vegetarian. I use dairy and egg products. I also wear some leather. I remember Voltaire's dictum, le mieux est l'ennemi du bien. So I try not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. There's a great New Yorker cartoon from a few years back from Alex Gregory. A couple of young women are sitting together having a meal, and one explains, I started my vegetarianism for health reasons. Then it became a moral choice. And now it's just to annoy me. So, what are some of these health considerations? This is from the Lancet, the premier British medical journal. Substantial contraction in meat consumption in high-income countries should benefit health, mainly by reducing the risk of ischemic heart disease, especially related to saturated fat in domesticated animals, obesity, colorectal cancer, and perhaps some other cancers. There are 76 million cases of foodborne illnesses a year in the United States alone. When purchased, 83% of chicken meat in the U.S. is infected with pathogens like Salmonella and Campylobacter. About 80% of the nation's antibiotics, nearly 30 million pounds, are added to animal feed every year, mainly to speed livestock growth. Thus, antibiotic-resistant organisms, superbugs, like MRSA, proliferate, owing to much heightened antimicrobial resistance in people. MRSA infections kill 5,500 Americans every year. Manure runoff from concentrated animal feeding operations and from conventional farms, the runoff pollutes groundwater and carries pathogens. More than 40 diseases can be transferred from manure. How much manure? 500 million tons a year. That's 3 times that from humans in the U.S. alone. So what are some of the moral considerations? We are, more or less, on an annual basis in the world, killing 1.7 million camels for food, 24 million water buffalo, 292 million cows, 398 million goats, 518 million sheep, 633 million turkeys, 1.1 billion rabbits, 2.6 billion ducks, and 52 billion chickens. And they have faces. And there's fish too. Total fish production in the world in 2007, according to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, was 118 million tons. And you'll see how that has risen in the 50 years since 1961. And this part of this graphic is for fish for for non-consumption purposes. So being fed to other fish, quite a lot. And these are the various kinds of fish from different parts of the ocean and from fresh water. You're familiar with these. Diadromous simply means migrating between fresh water and salt water. Demersal means at or near the bottom. Pelagic means at or near the surface. Crustaceans are lobster, crab, shrimp. Mollusks are clams, snails, and cephalopods are squids, octopus, those sorts of marine animals. And that's not to mention the bycatch. All right, what is bycatch? That's catch that is either unused or unmanaged, including turtles, dolphins, even seabirds. Fisheries data conservatively indicate that bycatch represents 40.4% of global marine catches. That's another 57 million tons on top of what we saw earlier. I read a paper yesterday about the state of the world's oceans. It's not pretty. Besides overfishing, there's pollution, habitat destruction, rapidly increasing ocean heat content, and ocean acidification. We are killing complex ecosystems that have evolved over hundreds of millions of years. In effect, the article says, humans are eliminating the lions and tigers of the sea to make room for cockroaches and rats. And there's more. Remember those frogs' legs? Well, people are destroying biodiversity by eating them, and at the same time wreaking havoc on ecosystems. Hundreds of millions of frogs, most of which are imported, are eaten in the European Union and America every year, while the source populations in the countries of origin are collapsing. Most wild frogs today come from Indonesia. The millions of frogs taken from Indonesia, mostly from Java, have already severely impacted local ecosystems, as witnessed 30 years before in India and Bangladesh. What happened there? As frog populations collapsed, one of the most critical natural control agents for agricultural pests and mosquitoes was lost. And accordingly, pesticide imports went through the roof. 3,000 tons of frog legs from 55 million frogs in India at the height of its export. So, in 1987, India banned the export of frogs' legs. Bangladesh had the same experience, so finally in 1995, they banned export. And then this continuing line is Indonesia. So, nutrient runoff from farms causes dead zones. Marine environments like the Gulf of Mexico with little or no oxygen. And you can see inshore that these are essentially anoxic. There is no oxygen in this water. Okay? Most of these nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen, come from farms raising feed, mostly soybeans and corn. Corn also for ethanol, and that's just like the farming communities right around here. 70% of the nutrients coming to the Gulf of Mexico wash down the Mississippi from farms in the Midwest and South. Since 2004, the number of marine dead zones like this worldwide has quadrupled from 146 to 600. So, synthetic nitrogen fertilizers. They not only wash down rivers causing dead zones, but they also volatilize into the atmosphere as nitrous oxide, a greenhouse gas 300 times as strong as carbon dioxide. Okay? So you're seeing that 15% of the greenhouse gases that we generate in the world today come from agriculture. All right? Most of that is either nitrous oxide or methane. The methane comes from enteric fermentation in ruminants, cattle, sheep, buffalo, and the like. And, well, it's belched from these animals, but it's otherwise passed as gas. We called it making a puff when my kid was little. How much? About 7 billion tons a year of greenhouse gases, measured in carbon dioxide equivalent, from agriculture, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization. More than 6% of the world's total annual greenhouse gases, overall, from all sources, are attributable to methane and feed inputs, just from beef cattle. Okay? And you can see, for instance, what the footprint is, measured in kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent relative to the amount of usable protein ingested by people from beef cattle. Okay? Dairy cattle, somewhat less. Small ruminants like goats and sheep, pigs, chicken, and eggs have a much smaller footprint, but nevertheless are producing greenhouse gases. And there's a water footprint, too, that we need to concern ourselves with. And you'll see, once again, beef is the clear winner in all this, measured in quarts per kilocalorie of energy produced, and relative, obviously, to vegetables and legumes and cereals, much, much, much more. Then we have land use changes. Deforestation in Latin America, including the Amazon rainforest and Brazilian Cerrado, is almost exclusively a result of cattle ranching and soybean cultivation. Most of the world's soybeans are consumed indirectly by humans through products like meat, chicken, pork, and beef, dairy, eggs, and farmed fish. And so 37% of the world's greenhouse gases from deforestation and other land use changes are attributable to Brazil. This is a graphic showing the net change in forest area between 2000 and 2005, in which there has been a greater than 0.5% decrease during that time, per year. This is the rainforest, and this is the Cerrado area. Rather palpable. Of the 2.59 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent worldwide caused by land use changes in 2009, 970 million of that was from Brazil, 37%. We've quadrupled our meat consumption globally in the last 50 years, from 1961 to 2009. And where are we? We're in system overload. All right? 80% of oceanic fisheries are being fished at or beyond their sustainable yields. Global grazing livestock population grew by 1.2 billion animals since 1960. Overcutting, the world's forests lose a net 5.6 million hectares, an area the size of Costa Rica, every year. This is a headline from the New York Times from last week. Okay? Why is climate change seen posing a risk to food supplies? Drought, reduced snowpack, floods, saltwater intrusion as sea levels rise, heat waves, more agricultural pests, greater air pollution, rising ocean heat content, and acidification, among other reasons. So, after you've been thoroughly depressed by that, you should know, and I wouldn't have told you all this if I couldn't tell you, that we do not need to be eating animals, that there are some truths about protein that you should know if you don't know. People can eat meat, but is that optimal in our design by evolution, or if you prefer God? No, it's not. Our teeth are much more like true herbivores than like carnivores. Similarly, our digestive tracts are much more like herbivores. Long, 12 times the length of our torsos, unlike carnivores that are only 3 times the length of their torsos. Carnivores kill their prey, consume it, digest it quickly, eliminate it, and then get back out on the hunt. Early Homo sapiens subsisted almost entirely, we see from fossil evidence, on fruits, nuts, tubers, berries, and wild grains. We are not so far removed from our ancestors. It's really very easy to reduce and eliminate animals from your diet. The simple secret is to balance amino acid intake to make complete meals, match various food groups like nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes with each other, or any of these with dairy or egg. Livestock's long shadow. A report from the Food and Agriculture Organization said, quote, "The livestock sector emerges as one of the top 2 or 3 most significant contributors to the most serious environmental problems at every scale from local to global. The findings of this report suggest that it should be a major policy focus when dealing with problems of land degradation, climate change, and air pollution, water shortage and water pollution, and loss of biodiversity." Lord Stern, the preeminent economist in the world working on climate change, said, "Meat is a wasteful use of water and creates a lot of greenhouse gases. It puts enormous pressure on the world's resources. A vegetarian diet is better. I think it's important that people think about what they are doing, and that includes what they are eating. I am 61 now, and attitudes towards drinking and driving have changed radically since I was a student. People change their notion of what is responsible. They will increasingly ask about the carbon content of their food. I hope you will too."